This week's episode is brought to you by Dog and Gun Coffee. This week I was lucky enough to head into the Dog and Gun Coffee headquarters and hang out with the crew there. We had a lot of fun. We shot our bows, had a barbecue. It was just a great time all round. But I was super stoked because I got my hands on a bag of Black Death, which was the collaboration brew that they did with Blood Origins. And I'll tell you what, it is freaking tasty. I know why all of the hype was about for it. Now, unfortunately, I don't think you can get your hands on that one anymore. But what you can get your hands on is the rest of their blends and brews, which are absolutely incredible. Even if you do not have a coffee machine, their preloaded drip filters are so good that you just need hot water. You can pour it straight over the top and you've got coffee anywhere that you are. Now, I particularly like this because when I'm out in the bush, I like to feed my caffeine addiction, which is why I make sure I've always got the preloaded drip filters wherever I am. I'm actually going to the snow next week, heading down for a snowboarding trip with the family, and I'm taking a bag of their Wapiti brew down with the preloaded filters, just so I've got coffee on the side of the mountain, coffee when it's freezing cold, and it's going to be my go-to whenever I go camping or go on a trip or go abroad, traveling at all. I'm always going to make sure I've got my Dog and Gun coffee with me. And you can do this as well and get $10 off for your next order when you use the code Bowhunter, all in capitals. That's Bowhunter, all in capitals, and that will get you $10 off of your next order at Dog and Gun Coffee.
Hey there, and welcome to Becoming a Bowhunter. I'm your host, Matty, and join me and our guests as we take the quality of meat back into our own hands, searching the wild for free-ranged animals to harvest as ethically as we can. I interview a variety of specialists from the bow hunting community to help fast-track your journey as a bow hunter. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this chinwag on one of your favorite topics in the world, bow hunting.
Team, what is up? This week you're in for a little treat. I've got Ryan Anderly on the show. And Ryan is someone who does keep to himself a lot more in regards to doesn't have his own social media platform that he's posting on and sharing all of his experiences with the world. But to be honest, he's got so many stories as you're about to hear, and we really just touched the surface. And you'll hear exactly why I got him on the podcast within like the first few minutes of it. The close encounters this guy's had is absolutely unreal. And I know that you are in for a special treat. So yeah, you guys can reach out to Ryan. I think he does give some details via the podcast, but make sure you check out my social media page over the coming days, becomingbowhunter.podcast. Because I will be sharing some photos that Ryan sends through of the certain instances that we're talking about. So, yeah, team, enjoy this one.
Team, welcome back to Becoming a Bowhunter. Sitting here with Ryan Anderly today. Ryan, welcome, mate.
Thanks, mate. Good to be here.
I'm pretty excited for this one. Quite often I get a lot of reach outs just via email, people saying, hey, you should interview this person. And typically it's like the big names, like, oh, you should interview like Joe Rogan. You should interview Adam Greentree. You should interview Cam Haines. I'm like, look, I've tried. I've sent them messages and it doesn't happen. What I don't get every day is a message like what I did for you, Ryan. It's a message saying, hey, I know this guy that's an avid bow hunter who's had a few close encounters with many different animals. You should give him a go. And I was like, I love close encounters and I love hearing those types of stories. And then we got messaging, and you are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to bow hunting, like someone who I don't know anything about if you've got a social media or anything like that, but you're definitely out and doing the hunting life, especially with the bow, which I think is absolutely incredible. So first of all, do you have a social media where people can follow along at all?
Not really, mate.
Not really. That's cool.
I got a mobile phone and that's about it. I live at a farm and
that's good.
Spend my life out in the bush.
I love that. And so you have a property out near Cairns, and you get to see you said, what, 30 to 50 pigs a day, roughly?
Yeah, it depends. I bait the pigs, so I've got a mate down the road that grows pawpaws, and I throw the odd bit of corn out there. So I've always got pigs coming in, and me and my boys go down to the creek, and so I shot a pig last night, actually, and one the night before. And yeah, we just drill a few pigs every night. Some nights we'd see 50, 80, just depends. At the moment, there's only probably 15 coming in. But yeah, chops and changes, the pigs move around.
That's amazing, mate. And so I actually want to start off with the close encounters. Let's get right into the thick of it. Then we'll come back and visit your history in bow hunting a little bit more. So you've had quite a few encounters from what I've heard from you, basically just on our message thread that we were doing last week, from pigs through to sharks. So let's start in the water, and then we'll move our way onto the dry land. What happened when you were spearfishing?
Yeah, well, there's three things I really love in life, and that's bow hunting, fishing, and flying. And with the fishing, we always spend a fair bit of time in the water. So the fella that actually passed my name on to you, him and I were out fishing, and he dived down, and we were doing a bit of spearfishing, and he shot a trout, and on his way back up, he had a few issues with his eardrum, so he climbed out of the water. And within about a minute of that, I shot a trout. And from about 15 meters, the water was crystal clear, beautiful water. I was down about 12 meters. And yeah, out of the blue, I just see this bull shark drop its fins and hammer towards me. So I started backpedaling up towards the top of the water. He hit me at the top of the water. I'm just smashing it with my spear gun, trying to keep him off of me because I've got a trout. I've got no spear on at this point. I've got a trout in the end of the spear, and the shark thinks I'm an injured fish, so he's having a go at me. My mate could see me sort of being pushed out of the water with my back coming out of the water a couple of times. And luckily there was a reef behind me. I kept backpedaling up onto the top of the reef, gave him a yell, and he came and got me.
Jesus. So did it actually bump you? Did it give you a little nudge?
Oh, it gave me a lot of nudges. Yeah, it gave me quite a few nudges. It was only about maybe 3 or 4 months before that. I was in the water with my son. I shot a trout and wasn't watching what I was doing, and I was holding the trout, and the shark came up and bit my hand and took the trout out of my hand.
Like a proper like grab and shake sort of situation?
Yeah, proper grab and shake. He cut my thumb up a bit, but yeah, it wasn't too bad, mate.
Like surgery or not that extreme?
Nah. So no, not surgery. Not surgery on that one, no. Sure. No, it wasn't that bad. Honestly, we carried on fishing. Not a big issue.
Yeah, wow, but still, just that sort of encounter. Do you still go spearfishing? Are you still excited to be in the water?
Yeah, the weather's pretty crap at the moment, so we can't really get in the water. We've got the winds blowing, which is probably a good thing because that last shark attack, it wasn't a huge shark. It was probably 2.5 meters, but that put the wind up me. I was a bit nervous after that. But yeah, no, I'll be back in the water, mate. There's no doubt. Spearfishing is almost like underwater bow hunting. It's absolutely epic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I'm yet to do. I am actually pretty keen to try it out. I think there's actually a dive center just close by me that teaches you how to do the breathing properly and everything. So I think I will go and do that course eventually. I've actually talked with some friends of mine, the guys who own Dog and Gun, and they're pretty keen to go do the same thing. So yeah, we might try to tee that up. I'm seeing them this Friday. It'd be cool.
Yeah, well, if you're going to go and give spearfishing a go, a serious go, you should go and do an apnea course, a sort of free diving course, how to breathe up and sort of what to do in a case of emergency. There's a lot of people that have shallow water blackouts and sambas and things like that. So yeah, safety first.
Yeah, no, I'm really all for that, especially the amount of deaths and stuff that I've heard of within the Spearo community. It's not great, right? Like if you're going out there, you're going out to have fun, and the last thing you want to have is a death or something like that on your hands while you're out there. Yeah,
well, that's right, absolutely. And you owe it to the people you're diving with also to 100%. Know what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I can't agree more. So let's take it back on land. You had a few close encounters with many different animals. Something that came about was the fact that you like to bow hunt barefoot all the time. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, I do. I don't know why. It's just ever since I came to Australia, I suppose I'm a farmer and all I ever wear is thongs on the farm. So I very seldom wear shoes.
Safety boots.
And yeah, the Aussie safety boots. Exactly. So I spend a lot of time out in the bush, up the Cape. And I would say 98% of that time I'm barefoot. It's just super quiet. It's sometimes really uncomfortable, but you've got to embrace the suck a little bit and just keep going.
Definitely, dude. No, I like the approach. I wear volleys when I go out hunting. I cop a bit of grief from that sometimes because it's like we're walking up in hills and there's rocks and stuff. I'm like, I don't care. Like the volleys are actually really good for me. I'm pretty flat-footed, so it works well. So yeah, I can completely understand. Once you find something you're comfortable with, you kind of just like to keep to it, right?
Absolutely.
So how has that then unfolded for you on some close encounters?
Well, look, I got really hammered by a big ball, probably, I'd say 5 years ago. Got me flown out of Weipa Hospital back to Cairns. A lot of surgery. It nearly took my foot off. I was just walking up. I hunt a lot in a place called Maloona. Beautiful hunting. Just dry creek beds, lots of pigs and lots of good boars. And yeah, I was walking up the creek. My mate and I, who I hunt with all the time, he's probably my best friend in the world. His name's Dennis Powell over in New Zealand. He's an older fella. And yeah, we'd just split up, and he had gone up sort of one arm of the creek, and I had gone up the other arm. And within 15 minutes, I've started going down into this dry creek, and the bank, it was quite a big creek actually. The bank would have been 2.5, 3 meters, maybe 3 meters high. And I'm halfway down, and on the other side of the bank underneath a tree, I spy a big stinky old boar, and he's lying under the tree fast asleep. He's got his back facing directly towards me, and I think, oh, I'm going to slide an arrow into this guy beautifully. So I'm standing on the pad, draw back and drill this pig, and he stands up and just spins around once or twice and bolts like a cut cat. And he just happened to run exactly on the pad that I was standing on. And the big takeaway from this is, if you're standing on a pig pad, take a couple of steps off it before you shoot the pig.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I do now. But yeah, this pig came screaming along the pad. I waited until he was right next to me and tried to took a side step to get off the pad. And then he saw me, stuck a hook into my right ankle, threw me down into the creek, turned around, came and climbed on top of me. This is all really quick. This has happened in the space of about 3 seconds. And yeah, I shoved my Bowtech bow in his, I had no option but to shove something in his mouth, because at this point he's standing on my guts trying to grab hold of me. Jesus. I shoved my Bowtech, I was shooting an RPM 360 into his gob and kept him off of me with that. We stayed doing that. So I was screaming at him. He was honking at me, and he was pissing blood out of his mouth onto my chest. And that lasted probably 2 or 3 seconds, and he turned around and walked off. Yeah, and I looked down and my foot was hanging off, and I had to start crawling. I've injured myself a fair bit. I spend a fair bit of time in hospital, crash gyrocopters and things like that. And I started crawling. I knew I'd only have maybe half an hour before the adrenaline wore off, and I had a long crawl back to the car. So started crawling back. I carried my bow for a bit and realized that was stupid because I had a GPS on me. So dropped the bow and took a GPS mark of where the bow was and carried on crawling just with the water. And look, it wasn't that far. I think it was like a K and a half or a K and a half. I can't quite remember. But just through a lot of creeks and things like that, managed to get back to the car. And the car was parked on a hill, and it's a manual ute. So the bone was sticking out the bottom of my leg. So I had to stick the piece of bone on the accelerator because I couldn't pull off backwards, and the left foot on the clutch, and managed to drive it all the way back to the station. And they tried the foot at this point was absolutely numb. You could push it and it was just staying white. There was no blood flow because it was kinked right off to the inside of the leg. So my mates owned the station, and they got the blow with a doctor somewhere. I'm not sure where he was actually, and they managed to relocate my foot, which we got a video of. It's quite insane. And then drove me in the car to the hospital, basically, and they put me on an airplane, flew me back to Cairns, and a whole lot of surgeries, put the foot back.
Mate, that is insane. That is absolutely crazy.
It was.
So let's just recap a little bit. So he's run up at you on the pig pad, meaning your game trail, and the first initial knock is that what did the damage to the foot?
Yeah. So look, 9 times out of 10 we get chased by pigs every year. And 9 times out of 10 will be near a tree, or you'll manage to jump over the pig or something like that. We typically jump over a pig or two every year.
Yeah.
And get to a tree or something like that. I just had nowhere to go. I was on a pad up a steep bank. Yeah. And he ran up, and I waited till the last second. There were pig pads everywhere, but he just stayed on the pad I was on and came straight up at me. And I tried to sidestep him at the last minute.
That's insane.
And yeah, he stuck his hook straight in between the joint of my ankle and my leg and popped the foot off the leg.
And so from there, he's just jumped straight off the bank at you, pretty much onto your chest?
Well, I was halfway down or so down the bank, and he sort of stuck his hook in me and flicked me to the side, and I went straight down into the riverbank. Managed to hold on to my bow, thank goodness. And he turned around and came running straight onto my chest, and I shoved the bow straight into his mouth.
And at that point, he's just trying to throw his head around at you? Is that what he's doing, like thrashing side to side sort of thing?
He's trying to hook. He knew where my head was, and he knew where my neck was. He was standing on my guts, trying to hook me out.
Yeah.
And of all the things that have happened to me in my life, the big hijack to South Africa, all of that sort of rubbish, and the gyrocopter, that pig actually affected me for a long time.
I can imagine.
After that, every time I went to bed, I'd picture that stupid pig standing over me, spitting blood on my chest, trying to hook me in the neck.
Jesus. Did he die?
There's absolutely zero chance he survived.
Yeah, but you just never found him.
Obviously. Well, mate, so we're in a creek that floods. They get massive floods up there, and I didn't go back until a year later, obviously.
Yeah, wow.
And there was just no chance of finding him.
Mate, that is insane. That is crazy. Like I've heard a lot of close encounters, but I've never actually heard one where the pig has been actually so successful. I see a lot on Instagram and whatever else, like your socials. But it's actually kind of a terrifying moment. I actually had recently on my big ball that I sent you photos of, the one that I posted on Instagram for everyone, the one that I got down at Grant's block. For those who've been following along, I shot him, and it wasn't until I shot him that I was like, oh shit, like he can come and get me now. Like it was like that quick realization of now what's he going to do because the ball's in his court and he could potentially run at me. And he tumbled like 2 or 3 times down the hill towards me and started coming at me. And I was like, oh no, like I just hadn't thought it over at all. Luckily he kind of transitioned and went the other way. And then it was like, oh cool, we're good again. And I was talking to Grant about it, and he said that he smacks them, if they ever come at him, smacks them with the limbs of the bow, which I never would have thought to do because I would be worried that I'd break my bow limbs. I would have thought to try jump or do something like that instead.
Yeah, look, I was hit by a ball, not a bad hit. I took a hit in the arm once, probably would have been 9 years ago on another ball, but I've never hit a ball with my bow. I've jumped a few pigs, and got behind trees. If you've got a tree, and a lot of times you don't have a tree, but if you've got a tree, it doesn't even need to be a big tree. He's not going to go through the tree. Yeah. Just stay behind it and keep him on the opposite side. He's going to go down at some point if you've hit him reasonably well. Yeah. But yeah.
What have you kind of found with if you jump a pig, for instance, do they keep coming back at you?
Look, it depends on the pig. A pig is as different as a person can be. A lot of times, well, I'd say 90% of the time you shoot a pig and a decent ball, and he's just going to go like a cat. He's going to run as far and as fast as he can until he dies. Mm-hmm. But maybe 1 out of every 10 is going to look up and think, right, what was that? Something's hurt me, and I'm going to find it. And it's that pig that you got to watch out for. So the best thing you can do, I watch a few videos on YouTube. It's one of my favorite hobbies. I see a lot of guys shoot pigs, and the pig's only 20 meters away and it stands up and it's looking around and the old mate's loading another arrow. One day that's going to come back to bite you. If you've got a pig that you shoot and he doesn't run away at a high rate of speed, don't move, he'll pick up that movement and come and bite you. We've had it so many times. We up at Maluna, they used to do guided hunting, and I used to hunt up there with a mate of mine that was doing it. And the last year that we did it, we had this big fellow, I forget his name, I think his name was Robert, and he went hunting at a place right out the back of Maluna called Heaven. A lot of big boars out there. Well, actually, it wasn't Heaven, it was before you got there. But anyway, he shot this pig and he gut shot this pig. And they were sneaking in, trying to find this pig. And obviously the pig had bedded down and it came back out after them, and he turned around and ran away from the pig, and that pig got onto him in about 2 seconds. Jesus. And he only got a little nick in his leg because the guy that did the hunting is a really experienced hunter. He was on top of the situation. But yeah, you've got to sit dead still. If you hit a pig and he doesn't run, just wait. He's going to die, and don't move.
Mate, they're a pretty scary animal. Like I remember once I shot a little piglet because it was at my aunties and uncles' place, and they like, any pig you see, I need you to shoot them. And I took a shot of a piglet, and it squealed and then died pretty quickly. And the sow was just on the other side of the bush, and she came running out, and she just, like, the noises they make and the things they do, I backed up really quickly. I had my back against this other side of the bank, and I was ready to like jump and scour and do whatever I need to get out of there. But just the sound she was making, I was like, this thing's it's terrifying. This is when I'm very fresh to bow hunting, so I'd never really heard or been in the experience of pigs in general that much. So I was just like, what the heck is this? Like, it's insane. So I couldn't imagine one running at you like that. That'd be pretty petrifying for sure.
Yeah, look, it's pretty insane. I think they're one of the toughest animals I've hunted. I've hunted
100%.
a fair bit in Africa, hunted in New Zealand and Australia, obviously. And a well-placed arrow on any animal is going to kill it.
Yeah.
But man, those pigs, you can think you've hit them really good, and they just keep going for a fair bit. And yeah, it's a tough animal.
I got sent a video the other day, complete heart shot pass through on a boar, and it still ran over 200 meters. Like they just go. That's insane.
Yeah, look, I hunted that old mate of mine, Dennis, and he's got decades and decades of bow hunting experience. And we were at Maluna, and he shot this pig. And we sort of got in two different directions on this waterhole, and I came back to him. He says, okay, I've shot 2 pigs. And he said, I hit the first one real good, definitely a heart shot. And then about 2 minutes later, I shot another pig on the other side of the dam, and it actually turned out to be the same pig. He had shot him twice. Both were unbelievable shots, and it took about 250 meters for that pig to die, and it's just unbelievable.
Wow.
Sometimes they just keep going.
That's insane, isn't it? Like you're punching through the vital, and they still live. You're like, what the heck?
That's right. They just keep going. They're tough.
Hearty little buggers, definitely. So actually, I have the question back to when you had to crawl back to the car. You're obviously with your mate at that point in time. Does that mean you just left him? You just drove off without him? Or?
Yeah. So what happened was we do hunt together all the time. So he knew we've always got a plan if that sort of thing happens. We weren't that far from the home. We're probably 20K, so he started walking back. He'd walk back. Yeah. And I stopped when this happened and screamed for him as loud as I could. I was just screaming to see if he could hear me. He couldn't hear me. So I got back to the car, and then I drove down the arm of the creek that he had been on, hooting the horn. He didn't walk out, and then I just went because things were starting to get really painful at that point. He had heard the hooting. I didn't know this, obviously, and he had walked back and seen the car wasn't there. And his first thought was I'd been hit by a brown snake or something. Yeah. And obviously the pig was an infinitely better option than the brown snake, I think. So he just started walking back. We sent someone from the homestead back. They picked him up, and by the time he got back, I was on my way to hospital.
There you go. And so, did you lose much blood?
No, thankfully not. So he cut the outside of the leg, and apparently all the main sort of veins and things like that run on the inside of the leg, which is pretty good.
Wow. Do you mind if I share that photo as well? I'll share it to my socials when I drop the.
Yeah, mate. I can send you a couple of photos of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great. Sorry for the gory content for everyone who's a bit queasy on that stuff, but I think it's great to share that sort of stuff. It also gives a lot of awareness to better bow hunting situations, right?
Yeah, look, as I said, the biggest takeaway is if you see a pig sleeping under a tree, take a couple of steps off of his pad. He's going to run on one of his pads. He knows where those pads are. Just take a couple of steps to the left or the right and drill him. And then if he runs straight at you, he'll more than likely run down a pad.
Yeah, they've got their little highway system set up everywhere, right? Like they just know it like the back of their hands.
That's it.
Yeah.
They know exactly where they are and where they're going.
Yeah. So let's like backtrack here. What and how did you get into hunting? So South African background, but you said you didn't actually start bow hunting until you were in New Zealand. But is there a hunting background before that?
Not really, mate. I came from quite a sort of poor background. I lived in a city, never really got to hunt a huge amount at all back in South Africa, but was always super interested in it. Used to read Tarzan books by Edgar Rice Burroughs as a kid. Yeah. Dream of sort of living out in the bush, swinging around trees and shit like that. Not a lot of hunting experience, but got to New Zealand and I was dairy farming in a place called Artiamuri, which is not too far out of Taupo. And there were some pigs knocking around, some red deer and things like that. And I thought, what am I going to do? I haven't got a gun license. So I went and bought a bow. I can't even remember what it was. It was a PSE deer hunter or something like that. It was a real bottom of the range bow, and I bought arm guards and I bought all the gear that goes with it. Got into bow hunting, met a couple of guys that wanted to do it, and sort of spent a lot of time chasing goats.
Mm-hmm.
There were millions of goats in the hills in New Zealand, and would be out there every day in the afternoons if I could be just chasing goats and things like that, or the odd pig.
I love hunting goats. They're good fun.
Yeah, goats are great fun to hunt. And yeah, got into it like that. Slowly sort of upgraded the bows, got the best bow I think I ever shot was my Hoyt Razor Tech. It was just a great bow. Shot a lot of animals with that bow.
Yeah. So with that starting off and meeting a few people, like, did they kind of take you under their wing straight away, or was it a while that you were trying to hunt before you kind of met a few bow hunters?
Yeah, I moved to a place called Morrinsville in North Island, and the guy that I was milking cows for, he had a friend who had a cousin that was sort of into bow hunting, and it sort of started up through that. And then that cousin gave me my old mate Dennis's phone number. He's almost 70 now, but he'll be out this year chasing pigs again. And yeah, it sort of started with him. We went bow fishing, I think, is the first thing we went and did. We went shooting koi carp through the Waikato in New Zealand, which was epic fun.
It does look like a lot of fun, actually. It looks like heaps of fun.
It's a lot of fun. Look, him and I entered, Dennis and I entered the New Zealand Koi Carp Classic, and we shot over half a ton of fish in 2 days.
Holy
koi.
Joy. That's a lot.
It's a lot of fish, yeah. There's a lot of koi in those rivers.
That's insane. I actually saw on Meat Eater just recently, they did a catch and cook of the carp, because everyone says how crappy a fish they are. But they just did up like a basic kind of fry up, I guess. And they said it was actually really nice. I don't know how game I'd be to try it. They seem like they're bony little suckers, but yeah, they said it would pass. It would pass as an edible fish.
Mate, that would be the last thing on the planet I'd eat. If I was starved, I might eat a koi, but until then, nah.
Oh, that's hilarious. And so let's delve into your hunting around New Zealand a little bit more. Was it pretty much just around the public lands of where you were located, or was there more to it? Did you travel with it a bit? Yeah,
so... Oh, no, I never hunted the South Island, which is probably something I'll regret. I might get down there, although I don't think I could do the Southern Alps anymore. I've just had too many operations on the legs and knees and things like that to be trumping up and down the Southern Alps.
Bit cold for bare feet too.
Oh, yeah, no, you can't go bare. In New Zealand, you're going to be wearing boots. But, yeah, look, all of it was in the North Island. I would say most of it would be on public land. The odd occasion, I shot my good fellow on all free range, but on a private sort of farm. I shot a really good fellow deer that landed up in the record books for a fair bit, and that was on a private block, sort of bounded by state forest. But yeah, most of it was on public land.
That's amazing, dude. I think there's such a big shift from, I don't know if you went from New Zealand straight to Queensland, but like where you've got so much public land in Queensland and it's not accessible at all. It's really unfortunate. Whereas you see something in New Zealand where it's like, hey, come and hunt as much as you like.
Yeah, that's right. It's easy in New Zealand. It really is. You just find a good block of dirt and you get to know the blocks. I did a bit of hunting out of a place called Galatea in the Ureras. We chased some rooster there. I actually never got one, but chased reds. And I think the best trophy I've ever shot would be the ugliest head you've ever seen. It's a 9-point red stag. Shot it with my mate Dennis at a place called the Ruahinis. He's got 6 points on one side, 3 points on the other, and he's about 3 inches wide.
Wow.
So he's a real scungy-looking stag, but he was right up in the hills, real hard hunting. We did a lot of walking in the mountains, finally roared him in and drilled him. And, that's probably the hunt that'll stick with me for the rest of my life.
Just because of how hearty it was, like how hard you had to work for it?
Yeah, we had to work so hard, and I ended up shooting them really close.
Is this the one?
Really?
You said like 1.5 meters, right?
No, that was actually on a private block. That one again with my mate Dennis. We in a place called Taumaranui. We were hunting during the raw, walking through a bit of sort of dense. New Zealand bush is thick, not like thick here. It's really, really thick.
Yeah.
And we're walking through some pungas and things like that, and we came onto this wallow, and Dennis was standing right next to me. The wallow's only, I don't know, 1.5, 2 meters sort of long. It's just a stag wallow. And we hear the crack of some sticks above us. So I put an arrow on. I see the deer slowly walking down towards the wallow. I draw back, and he comes out, stands straight onto me at about 1.5 to 2 meters. And I couldn't aim. He was way too close. He almost sort of shooting instinctively, shot him front on, straight in front of me at 1.5 to 2 meters somewhere, and he went about 20 meters and piled up.
Yeah, well.
Not a good stag. Only I think it was either a 4 or 6 pointer, but I'm not that guy that sort of chases trophies or anything like that. I'm not too fussed how big the animal is. It's more about, I don't know, being out there with my mate and
definitely
and sharing those experiences with him, eh?
Yeah, 100%. And do you eat the meat at all?
Yeah, absolutely. We got back only maybe 4 weeks ago, maybe a bit more, maybe 6 weeks ago. I can't remember. From Charters Towers, we went and chased some chital. I got a couple of chital, so they're here in the freezer. Absolutely love venison.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I miss about New Zealand, it's just so available over there. Here, it's a little bit harder to find the right places to hunt. It's just, it's hard work. But we booked a raw trip this coming season down in the Brisbane Valley. So
Amazing.
all of me and the mates doing that. So it'll be good fun.
Who's that with?
Yeah, that's a question. His name's Glenn.
Okay.
I can't even remember, mate. I'd have to look at the emails. We got put onto it by the fella that we were hunting with at Charters Towers.
How good.
Gave us his name, so we've got onto him and booked a trip, basically. It'd be good.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's kind of my region, and the Brisbane Valley delivers on red deer. Obviously, you've seen a lot over in New Zealand, but the reds down here are known for their genetics, obviously. And so
yes,
you're in for a stellar time. Just there's nothing like being in the red raw. I think like being out there and just having them go absolutely bonkers at each other it's something different. It's so fascinating to sit there and be a part of.
Yeah, that's right. It's it would be my favorite time of the year to hunt. Is the raw. But it's real hard in New Zealand, especially where I live. I'm a long way up north, and there's no reds nearby. So
we this is a pretty funny story. We've recently just had our second daughter, and she was born in March. But when we were trying to conceive, I was like planning it in my head. I'm like, look, we can't bang during this month because it means that we're going to have a child in April, and I can't have my April being affected at all. So we need to plan this out really well and make sure that we don't have any birthdays during April, so I can hunt if needed.
Yeah, well, that's my wife's birthday is on the 8th of April, so we've been married about nearly 21 years, heading towards 21 years. So I've probably had about 3 birthdays with her in that time.
Might be why you're still together, hey? Give her a weekend away every time.
That's right. That's
hilarious. So let's I know we've covered a lot of ground, but I want to pop back to your fallow deer, your record fallow deer. And you've actually got him sitting behind you. Not that anyone will be able to see that because we're not recording video, but let's just talk that out a little bit. How did that hunt go down? You said it was a record breaker for a little bit, so kind of tell the whole encompassing story of that.
Okay, so we were hunting in a place called Ruati, which is not too far from Taumarunui in the sort of centre of the North Island. Again, hunting with my old mate Dennis, camoed up beyond belief, and we're on this pad. These fallow get these massive rutting pads, and they were just fallow stags fighting and croaking and going wild on this pad. And Dennis and I had split up a little earlier, and I didn't actually know it, but he was sneaking in from sort of almost the other side of the pad as I was sneaking in as well, and we had the 2 bigger stags having a punch up on the pad, and it took ages for me to get in. I mean, I would have only stalked 150 meters, but it took hours because there were so many deer. I shot a stag on the way in that had sort of blown me a little bit, just a little stag, and sort of left him there and carried on in towards the bigger stag. Managed to get close enough, drilled him. He was a good stag. I actually had to shoot him twice. Actually, I might have shot him another shot. I can't even remember. Yeah, I think I hit him twice, and he went down. I didn't realize it, but Dennis had also shot the stag that my stag had been fighting with. So we both got really good stags. And he measured,
did you shoot
I
at the
think
same
it was
time, like accidentally?
No.
Okay,
I shot mine. They had been fighting. They split up and they'd fight with other stags. It was just the most amazing sight I've ever seen. And I had a lot of footage of that, but our house had burnt down and I lost all that. But,
no way.
you know, it was just the most amazing thing we had ever seen. So the two big stags that were fighting and sort of seemed to be in charge of the whole pad, they had split up and were wandering around with other stags, and his stag had gone to the side that he was on and he drilled it. And my stag had sort of come a bit closer to me and I drilled it. And yeah, we both got two good stags that morning. But the deer numbers on that farm were just unbelievable. There were just hundreds and hundreds of fallow and a lot of reds too.
That's amazing. Do you think that that makes for harder hunting or easier hunting?
I think it depends on the time of the year. I think during the rut, when there's a lot of deer about, those deer are just so preoccupied.
Yeah.
There's just deer running around. There's deer rutting. It's just crazy. But if it's not the rut, I'd far rather stalk in a single deer than 10.
Yeah,
it's just much harder.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It can be, just not that I know a lot from experience, because a lot of the time I am only hunting kind of 1 to 2, 3 deer sort of at a time. But yeah, when you're hunting on that many eyes, it can just be so difficult, right?
Oh, absolutely. We had that same problem when we went to Charters Towers. There were a lot of deer, a lot of eyes. It's hard getting in there. But if something's really rutting good, even those reds, those fallow, and all the stags are roaring and winding each other up, there's just nothing better in the world, I don't think.
Yeah, definitely. It makes me just so excited for another 6 months' time, right? Or maybe a little bit longer.
That's right.
Yeah, we've got a while yet. But no, it definitely gets me pumped for that time of year again.
Absolutely.
So you got him, and what did the record books, like, how did that all work out with your fellow for the record side of things?
So I had another mate called Dave Evans who was hunting up in Northland, which is sort of the top of the North Island. And I don't even know how long my stag was at number 1, but it wasn't very long. My mate shot a bigger one. And it was in the same year that he shot a bigger one. So mine got bumped down, I think, to number 2 pretty quickly. And now I don't know where it sits. It's probably at, I don't know, it'll be 12 or something like that. There's a lot of big stags being shot lately. This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So this would have been, I don't know, 15 or 16 years ago.
And so you shot him and had like a specialist or like a qualified person come and measure him up as such? Is that how it kind of went down?
Yeah. Well, no. Well, that's what ended up happening. I got another mate called Danny. Again, I've never really hunted for trophies. It's all about just being out in the bush. Mm-hmm. So I didn't realize he was quite as good as he was. And neither did my mate Dennis. He sort of hunts with the same ideas that I do. So yeah, we neither of us had any idea. And my mate came over for a coffee one day, looked at the fallow stag, which had I didn't keep the head skin or anything from it. So that stag you see behind me, that's a different skin than the skin that he was wearing.
Yeah, wow.
And he said, "Holy crap, that's a good stag." I said, "Oh, I thought it was all right. I didn't think it was that good." And he said, no, we've got to get that measured. So I can't remember I think it was a lady came out, measured him, and he went up there.
That's pretty incredible. It's
yeah.
Isn't it funny, just that different mindset as well? Like, I would say I'm actually a lot more like you. Like, I'm just excited to be out hunting. I'm excited to be out and amongst it, being out with friends, meeting new people whilst out and doing it. It's just like that in general just fills my cup up. And I mean, if it so happens to be a giant animal at the same time, I'm stoked for that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, when you shoot an absolute trophy like that, like I've just done with that big boar that I took, you just like, it just kind of blows your socks off a little bit more, because you're like, whoa, people target these animals and spend so long chasing them, and for it to kind of come together just with being happy out in the bush is just such an amazing thing.
Yeah, look, we're heading over to South Africa next year with a whole bunch of us, a couple of local guys here, my old mate Dennis, a couple of guys from New Zealand. We're all going to head out to Africa and hunt. And I would say we've done it before, and we spent 95% of the time walk and stalk. And that's compared to sitting in a blind, it's a really unsuccessful way of hunting.
Yeah.
If you sit in a blind, you're going to shoot a lot of animals, and you're going to be able to pick the size of the animal and that sort of thing. But that really doesn't do it for me that much. I like to be out walking about and trying to outsmart that animal.
Yeah.
Last time I managed to shoot that waterbuck I showed you a little earlier. I shot a Roland Ward waterbuck, and that was all walk and stalk, and it took me a fair bit to get him. But man, it's satisfying when you're on the ground with the animal and you manage to outsmart him and get that arrow into him. It's something else.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't know if it's a patience thing or what. Like, I think bow hunters in general have a lot of patience for what we do, right? Whether you're spotting stalking on an animal, or if you are sitting in blind. But sitting in blind is just, I don't know, it just doesn't really flick my bean that much. I'm not that excited for it, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does. Like you say, it takes patience. I was having a chat just the other day to the fellow that gave you my name, Chance. He's reasonably new to bow hunting, and he's a good shot. But it's all about patience. We went down to Charters Towers with another guy that was reasonably new at bow hunting, and he didn't manage to get a deer on the ground. And it's as long as you've got persistence and patience, and if you practice the 3 P's: practice, persistence, and patience, it's going to pay off. If this stalk doesn't work, just keep going. Sooner or later, one's going to work, and you're going to learn from all of the ones that haven't worked what you've done wrong, and sooner or later, you're going to get better at it, and those deer will start dropping. That first deer that I ever shot was just a red spiker in New Zealand, and it took me a long time to get that deer on the ground. Lots of blown stalks, and when I say a long time, it probably took me 2 years of bow hunting before I shot my first deer. I shot a fair few pigs and hundreds of goats. Deer proved a little bit elusive for me, so it took a long time to get that first deer. But once you get the first one, they sort of start dropping a bit more regular.
Yeah, I actually was very similar. Good 2 years of getting to shoot goats and pigs and other things, but then I even shot a wild dog before I got to shoot a deer. But yeah, came around to shooting deer finally. And yeah, it must have been like 2.5 years or so. Like it was a long journey. And everyone said like, oh, it's just going to happen for you now. And it did to some extent, but at the same time, it's not just like, it's not like it's just easy. It's still bow hunting, right? Like you still have to get out and get after it and make all the things happen. And it's just that I think you're a little bit more witty about your approach.
Yeah, look, I'm actually bad. The signal just dropped out there, but I battled a little bit going back down to Charters Towers because I hadn't hunted deer for so long, and I'd hunted only pigs, and pigs are just so easy to shoot compared to anything else.
Yeah.
And then I got back to stalking the deer, and I really quickly realized I'm moving way too quickly. I'm not going slow enough. I think you've got to change your approach, obviously, on what you're hunting. Pigs are just it's like a goat. A goat's an easy thing to hunt.
Yeah.
But when you get onto those deer, they're just so switched on. Their eyes are good. Their noses are great. Their hearing's unbelievable. So you've got to go nice and slow. The slower the better, and just keep glassing. And yeah, took a fair few days to get the first deer down, but I managed to get two deer for the trip. So I was happy with that.
How good. I actually only just took my own like first fallow just recently, and it was literally like I was going slow on the stalk and whatever else, and he was kind of off to the side, and I was going for two that were fighting, but he saw me move, and it was his curiosity that killed him in the end because he came down to see what I was, and so during that time he came down, and then he kind of got a bit like, oh, there's definitely something there, but I don't know what it is. And he walked behind a tree, and it gave me like a chance to kind of stand up and take a shot. And so it was literally his curiosity that killed him. So I think, yeah, it's like going so slow or hoping that just all of the deer gods are on your side whilst it all is all unfolding for you.
Yeah, that's hunting is a lot of skill. There's no doubt. There's good hunters and there's bad hunters. There's the guys that have been doing it for a while and know what they're doing. They'll shoot more deer, but they all still take a little bit of luck. Like you say, sometimes you can be the best hunter in the world and just come up with a big donut because luck hasn't been in your side. The wind's been bad, or
wind, right?
Or the wind is a shocker. But look, I love shooting another animal. You might want to edit this out, but I love hunting brumbies.
Yeah, there you go.
I love hunting brumbies, especially when you get these stallions. Not because it's overly difficult. Hunting a brumbie is really easy, but a stallion, when he's on his own, he loves to prance around, and if he sees you, he'll run in the opposite direction for about 50 meters, 100 meters, and he thinks to himself, I wonder what that was, and he does a big loop and come straight back to about 20 meters of it. And it's just great fun, hey?
There you go. I've heard of people hunting donkeys, and I've heard of people eating donkeys and saying how amazing it is. And obviously, horse, like wild horse, is something that's eaten all over the world, just not very much in Australia. Like, it's almost frowned upon, right?
I've never eaten a horse, to be fair. So what we typically do, if we, again, you might want to edit this. There's going to be some people that don't like it, but what we do is we go out, and if we see a horse, we'll shoot a horse, and we'll mark it out on the GPS, and we'll go back there in 3 or 4 days. It'll be covered in big balls.
I was going to say pigs, yeah, definitely. Kill piles in general.
And the thing is, a horse eats on average about 3 times what a cow eats. So if you've got 100 horses on your property, you could have 300 more cows. But where we hunt, these are big stations, and they have got shitloads of brumbies. So we're not talking about 100 brumbies. We're probably talking about 600 brumbies.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's a lot of grass being eaten, and the farmer wants us to shoot brumbies along with dingoes, along with cats, and along with pigs. We shoot all the ferals.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of the same from camels, right? People who have camels on their blocks and shoot the bastards, get rid of them as much as you can, just because they are just absolute nuisances.
You go.
But so with the pigs that you guys hunt, you said that you bait them, you get them to come in on the corn. But do you essentially have a blind set up, or you still spot and stalk them to some extent?
Oh no! On my home farm, that's not a big farm. I got 300 acres, and it's just next to a river that is chocker full of pigs.
Okay.
So no, we don't. I work until reasonably late in the afternoon. I got half an hour sort of before dark, and I'll grab a beer and head down, and I've got a little piece of shade cloth sitting around a tree. I go and sit in there, and 9 times out of 10 the pigs are there, but sometimes they're not there yet. They come in, I'll shoot one, and I'll walk home and go the next morning, find the pig, and sort of repeat the process again the next day.
Yeah, you know what? So, that's my type of blind spotting, sitting and having a beer. That sounds a lot nicer to me than sitting there for a whole day.
Yeah, look, and we typically don't get very big. I shot a reasonable boar the other day, but we don't get a lot of big pigs. It's just a lot of pigs, and they cause a lot of damage to the farmers around me. Yeah, I just tend to get them all come on my place, and I shoot them.
So, I mean, let's talk about that, because you're a fruit farmer. You've got a lot of fruit farmers around you. What sort of stuff are they doing? Obviously, they come in, they dig up the grounds. But what do they do?
Yes.
You guys fruit and whatever else? Do they kill the trees? How's that kind of process work?
No, they don't really kill the trees, but they root up under the trees, and every tree's got a sprinkler, and it's got irrigation underneath it, and they'll chew on that, and they'll just dig things up. And I've got a mate. His name's Jan. He's got the most beautiful garden. Honestly, he's got this unbelievable grass and things like that. And he woke up one morning, the whole lawn was just upside down, just turned over by pigs. And it's unbelievable the number of pigs that we get here. There's just thousands and thousands. So, they do a fair bit of damage. I know that there's this whole scare going on at the moment with foot and mouth, and if it does get you, I don't know how they'd ever get rid of it, because they'll never be able to shoot the pigs out. There's just too many pigs.
Yeah, and so the foot and mouth situation, that's it's pretty much it's got to Bali, is that correct? That's as close as it's kind of got to Australia so far?
Yeah, well, they found viral fragments, but that's a pretty usual thing. Just in some of the pork, I think, or beef or something that came from China. So they've got a bit of, they found some viral fragments, but it's not here, so we're still clear. Whether it gets you, I don't know. If it does get you, that's going to affect everyone. It's going to affect everyone's hunting as well, because landowners are not going to want people from off the farm tromping on the farm. Basically, it's just carried on tires. It's carried any soil. So that'll affect a lot of people. So hopefully it doesn't get you, but we'll have to wait and see.
So it doesn't actually get carried by humans at all. It's just more actual, soils and it attaches to surfaces.
Yeah, and I don't know a lot about this, so I may be wrong, but it affects any split-hoofed animals, so deer, cattle,
animal,
pigs.
Right? Yeah.
Not a solid hoof, so not like a horse. It won't affect a horse apparently. And again, I stand to be corrected. Maybe I'm wrong. It's got to be a split hoof.
Okay.
But it's hugely contagious. It moves around in the soil. So hopefully it doesn't get you. Hopefully it doesn't, because it'll affect everyone in the city to everyone on the farm.
Definitely, yeah. absolutely everything crossed for that. That'd be an absolute nightmare for what we've got going on over here, really, especially right now while the seasons have just been so good for hunting in particular. Yeah, it's just next level. I think I actually didn't get to read the full article, but there was an article just recently of there was like 6,000 pigs got shot, like chopper shooting just recently. Something like that. Like obviously going up and chopper shooting up near you guys, for instance, has that happened whilst you've been farming there?
Yeah, look, it has. It actually happened while we were hunting at Maluna up the Cape. One of the neighbours got a chopper in and they were actually shooting the pigs, I don't know, 200 metres from us, so we were a bit worried about that. But, you know, they do shoot the pigs. It only takes a couple of years and there just seems to be more pigs.
Okay, so that was kind of be the question, like how much of a effect do you see it has on the hunting in general when that sort of stuff happens?
It does have an effect. It slows them down, but it's an expensive hobby shooting out of a chopper. So you've got to do it constantly to really get on top of the pig numbers, but you'll never eradicate the pigs.
No.
Short of some disease that they can put out there to wipe pigs out, you'll never get rid of the pigs, especially up the Cape. It's just too big. You'll just never get rid of all of them.
Yeah, definitely.
And personally, I don't want to get rid of them. I don't ever want to sort of hates pigs and what they do, but damn, I love shooting those pigs.
Kakadu National Park it was. Yeah, culls 6,000 pigs as aerial shooting. I don't know what that would cost. That would be so much. That would because that's obviously government money going into that. See if I can quickly find it. So whilst we're going through that, obviously you've gone and hunted through kind of the Cape and whatever else quite a lot. What have been some of your most memorable hunts from up there?
Yeah, look, that one with the pig was pretty memorable, and especially the one that nearly took my foot off. That was pretty memorable up the Cape. And then the hunt that happened immediately after that, the first pig I shot the following year, that was just memorable for me. Yeah, I think I was fairly nervous. It was a similar sort of situation, and I drilled that pig, but he obviously didn't come after me, and he died. But those times that I spent up there with my old mate, he's coming out again this year, and he may get another year in next year, but he's getting a bit old and he battles with the heat because it's obviously really hot up there, and he comes from New Zealand. Mm-hmm. So any of those times that I'm spending out there with him, I just absolutely love them. I'll probably take one of my kids with me this year. We'll wait and see. My oldest kid enjoys bow hunting, but he's not that big into it. I've taken him up the Cape before. He's more of a fisherman. But my youngest son seems to really enjoy it. He spends most nights here. Well, not most. We sort of split it 50-50 shooting pigs on this farm. So, yeah, maybe take one of them up there.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how's that introduction been for you bringing your kids into hunting? Does it kind of just happen because they were interested in what Dad was doing, or was there more to it?
Yeah, the youngest one they were both born in New Zealand, but the youngest one was sort of a bit older when I was bringing home deer and hanging up pigs, because we used to eat the pigs in New Zealand.
You haven't?
So we'd shoot a pig. No, not really. I've got a farm now and I grow my own pork. If I want, I'll grow a pig. So to be fair, I haven't. A lot of the pigs that I shoot, especially up the Cape, they've been eating on dead animals and things like that, and they absolutely stink. I can't bring myself to put it on my back and carry it out. And they're also covered in lice. You get a bit of lice in New Zealand, but not so much, not as much as you get here. All of the pigs I shoot here seem to be covered in lice and just there. So no, I haven't eaten the pigs here. But yeah, the kids watching me do that, I think they sort of got into it. And it's hugely satisfying when your son drops a good ball. Or something like that, and you're sitting right next to him. I love that. So
I can imagine.
Yeah,
I can only imagine. And then you've also got some trips to South Africa booked. When's that all happening? What's that looking like?
So I think we're going to head over in September next year. There's going to be a lot of us. You should come with. You'd enjoy it. We're going to be heading over to the fella that introduced me to you or gave you my number. He's sort of organising the whole thing, and we're just going to go over for 10 days, I don't know, 8 to 10 days of hunting next year around September. And then obviously I come back in October is when we tend to head up the Cape when it's warming up and getting nice and dry.
Amazing. So 2 solid months of hunting. How good. When you go I was going to say, when you go to South Africa, is there something that you're trying to target this time around?
Yeah, no, not really. If you're walk and stalk in South Africa, it's a different kettle of fish. Well, I think it's a different kettle of fish. Everything's pretty switched on. There's leopards chasing things.
Definitely.
It could be lions chasing things. So when you're walking and stalking, you take whatever opportunity walks in front of you. And I've shot a fair bit over there. I've shot sort of wildebeest, waterbuck, zebra, warthogs, things like that. But whatever walks in front of you in Africa, if you think it's a decent animal, you're just going to shoot it. There's things you'd like to shoot. I'd really like to go and shoot a bushbuck. Pretty hard to walk and stalk and get on those boys sometimes. So, yeah, I'd like to shoot a waterbuck. But, whatever opportunity sort of climbs in front of you, you're going to take it in South Africa, I think.
How much are you looking at for instance, like a bushbuck or a waterbuck or something like that? What sort of price tab do they have on them?
It depends if you've got an inside edge to Africa. Okay. I think if an Australian goes over there, he's going to be paying what the Yanks pay or what the Americans pay and things like that. But if you're sort of from South Africa, you're going to get it cheaper.
Okay.
But I think like a kudu would be a kudu, which is that sort of the longest spiral, the big spiral horn in it. Yeah. You know the one. They a good one of them is probably going to cost $3,500 US, maybe $4,000 US.
Yeah. It's actually cheaper than I thought, to be honest.
Okay. Well, there you go. So I thought that was a lot of money.
Like it is. It definitely is, but it's cheaper than what I thought.
There you go. So you can go and shoot a buffalo, a good buffalo for probably $12,000. It'll cost you $12,000 to go and shoot a good buffalo.
See, I think
a warthog.
If you do that in Australia,
a warthog. Yep.
It's only 10 maybe thereabouts. I'm not definite on that, but. Yeah,
I made a couple of calls the other day to try and you see, I got to shoot a buffalo with my bow. I really do. That's the one thing I'd like to do. And I made a few phone calls and I had prices from about $6,000 or $7,000 up to 12.
Yeah, wow, there you go.
To go and shoot buffalo.
I got to show you this picture. A guy I just saw yesterday on Instagram. That kudu is absolutely monstrous. Yes. It's Jake D Downs, Jake_D_Downs. That is a monster, right? And he did it with recurve. That's just absolutely amazing.
That's a beautiful looking kudu. That is. Amazing, it's got nice widespread in the mouth.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's interesting. The whole pay to hunt is something that I was like, when I first got into bow hunting, I was like, oh, why would I do that? I've got access. But now I'm like, no, I want to go and hunt different species. I want to get out and explore and I want to meet new people and stuff. And that's kind of opens up that I guess maybe in Australia, maybe in New Zealand. I don't know about South Africa. Now I've got an invite, maybe. It might be a thing.
That's the go. Yeah, look, and it'll improve your experience because hunting in different places, especially against different animals, or hunting for different animals, different species, will only do sort of improve your experience. Everything's different. Hunting in Africa is so different to hunting in New Zealand, for example. The terrain's different, the animals are different, and the experiences will be different. So look, it's well worth getting out there and doing it if you could afford to. A lot of people can't, but if you could afford to go and do these things, you got to do it before you're dead, right? You might as well give it a go.
Definitely right. So it sounds like you actually get to take a fair few new bow hunters out, or you've been experienced with being with new bow hunters to some extent. So what's kind of the rundown that you give them when you get to go out as an experienced hunter, when you're going out and taking them out as a fresh bow hunter? What's kind of the rundown you give them?
Again, it depends on what we're hunting. I've taken a fair few people out pig hunting, and I say the same thing I said to you earlier. If you shoot a good boar and he doesn't run away, you don't move. Yeah. Just sit dead still because he's looking for something. He's looking for what's hurt him, and if he sees what's hurt him, he's gonna go after it. Aside from that, my biggest issue in life is I'm impatient, and that doesn't go well with being a bow hunter. I really battle sometimes with being as slow as I need to be and glassing as much as I should glass, especially on this last trip to Charters Towers chasing chital. You got to go slowly. You've got to glass. You're going to get so much more success if you're slow and you're patient. So when I take people out that haven't done it or that are maybe new to it, I'll just give them as much information as I can, and sort of be by their side and get them as close as we can to take that perfect shot. And I do this. I've done it this week. I took a shot I shouldn't have done a pig. It worked out all right, but wait for the right shot.
Yeah.
Wait for that shot that's not too low a percentage shot. You've got to give the animal its dues and try not to wing it and rather just wait for that shot. It'll come. Maybe not on that animal. Maybe that one will bust you, but it'll come and you'll feel better for it. So
definitely, yeah. There's nothing worse than taking a shot that you then regret. That feeling is just horrible. But also, I think, like you just said, having that patience when the animal's right in front of you is so important, because if it's facing onto you and you don't want to take a front-on shot, then don't take it. Like, wait for the animal to turn, and you'll get given a position, you'll get given the shot eventually. And they always, depending on what they're doing, but most of the time they almost spin on the spot all the time, right? Like they're feeding around them. They're not necessarily going to walk consistently forward. Yes, sometimes they'll do that, but it seems like they constantly kind of shuffling side to side and transitioning to see where the other animals are and whatever else, and they'll eventually give you that broadside shot.
Yeah, that's right. It's okay with pigs if a pig's onto you and he's sort of looking at you, he can be broadside and look at you, but sort of turned his head and looking at you. You can take that shot and you'll still hit him in the chest. That'll be great if he's broadside.
Yeah.
But if you're hunting chittle deer or you're hunting in Africa and you've got an impala that's standing at 20 meters, he's standing broadside and he's looking at you, and you take that shot, he's going to jump that string.
Exactly. Shoot the ground.
And I've shot some pretty powerful bows. An RPM 360. I'm shooting a Matthews, and they're pretty fast bows. But things still seem to get out of the way. Not so much pigs, but those deer, man, or deer or antelope. Oh, they're onto it. They can get out of there pretty quick. So just take your time.
Yeah. No, definitely. Oh, yeah. Some of the videos you see of like deer, literally, especially chittle deer, for instance, like ducking a whole arrow. Like they'll shoot at the chest, aim for the bottom of the chest, and the animal drops its whole chest plus more. Like it just drops and then goes. It's so incredible.
And these we put I had that on this last trip, and my bow it was doing with the just over 500 grain arrow. It was doing about 200 and I think it was 290 feet a second, and that I had a chittle deer at about 25 meters. It managed to get out of the way of my arrow. And I don't know how it did that, It's just onto it,
That's absolutely incredible. So let's kind of talk out maybe just some of your, like, I know we've kind of already said a lot of them, but is there a hunt that you want to pass on before we kind of call it quits for today? A favorite hunt, another memorable one?
Yeah, look, that waterbuck I shot in Africa, that'd be another memorable hunt. I saw him from...
Let's talk that out. Yeah, I was going to say, talk it out. Like, take us through it, what happened. Because obviously you said it's different terrain, different scenario with an animal that's that aware. How did it play out for you?
Yeah, so we were, again, walk and stalk. I was on my own. Waterbuck's got a big white ring around his butt, so you can see him from a long way away, sort of around the tail, a big white ring. And I picked him out probably 200 meters away and slowly stalked in. And there was a nice kudu bull with a kudu cow, and she was on heat. And he would have been 15 meters the other side of that waterbuck, and I really wanted to shoot that kudu. It took me a while to get in there, but there was a fair bit of cover, so just kept sneaking in on him and got into position and waited for that kudu bull to come, but he just kept moving further and further away, and I couldn't get any closer because my waterbuck was there. And again, I don't pay a huge amount of attention. Apparently, it's quite a good waterbuck, but I wasn't sort of too fussed on how big the animal was. So ended up taking the shot him at 40 meters, quartering away, and he only made it, I don't know, probably 60, 70 meters. He's a big animal. He's probably built like a samba. So he made it 60 or 70 meters, and it was just really good because we had radios on us. We called each other, and the fella came down with a ute and picked it up, and my mates were there. My old mate Dennis was there, and it was just a great experience. Hunting in Africa is just something else. It's got to be the pinnacle for me of hunting. Maybe it's because I'm South Africa, but I'm South African, but just hunting in those environments when there's so many different species, that's unbelievable. Everyone's got to give it a go if you can.
Yeah, I've heard that quite a lot from just other hunters who have been through South Africa. They absolutely rave about it, just how good it actually is. And it's interesting because I think a lot of outfitters are not terribly happy for you to kind of spot and stalk as such. They'd prefer for you just to go and sit in the blind. And I don't know if that's because of a success thing and they want you to obviously pay and they know that that's a better success rate, or if it is more so the fact that that's just the way that some are for it, some are not. I don't know. Have you kind of had any encounters with that?
Yeah, look, 100% it's because of it's because of the value in the animals. So these game farms make their living by people shooting animals.
Yeah.
And the more animals you go and shoot, the more money they make. And they've got to make a living. So it almost becomes uneconomical to have bow hunters all the time walking around on the property because it's far less successful than sitting in a blind. Literally, you can sit in a blind and you'll have animals coming into that water hole or that feed station all day. And you can choose what you want to shoot. And then you move to another blind or you stay in that blind. More animals will come in. So yeah, they definitely prefer you to shoot out of a blind. And look, there's nothing wrong with shooting out of a blind. Some people might like it. It's just
definitely
not my cup of tea.
I think what's cool is,
I
someone
prefer to.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say someone like Dennis, for instance, your mate who's going on 71, like, he might have a few more years of blind hunting ahead of him because his mobility just eventually becomes too much that he's just immobile enough to be able to walk and stalk out in the paddocks. But he could potentially still get a lot of joy in his life doing a few more years of sitting, waiting for it, right?
Look, absolutely. And he shot an amazing kudu. A really good kudu. I think it was like 54, 55 inches, which is a good kudu. And he shot that, he climbed up a tree and sat in a tree. And while he was sitting up in the tree, he had a rhino come out. He's got photos of this rhino rubbing its ass on the tree about 1.5 meters below his feet. And there's a water hole nearby. And within half an hour of being sitting up in this tree, he had a good kudu come in and he drilled it. And he said that was one of the greatest experiences of his life. And him and I have had some amazing experiences up in the bush, roaring in reds, big reds that come screaming out of nowhere right up to you. So, yeah, for him to say that, it must have been pretty special.
Yeah, that's incredible. Actually, I want to ask you about the roar, especially over in New Zealand. A lot of the guys I was watching in the lead up to this roar are constantly out in the bush doing roars, pretty much. They don't tend to do the girl calls at all. What was kind of the methodology you got taught and passed on to you as a hunter in New Zealand?
Yeah, so I never got to, none of my mates sort of roared. I ended up going out in the bush and just doing it myself. I ended up getting a piece of poly pipe, a 50 mil piece of poly pipe, and headed out roaring stags. And one of the best roars Dennis and I ever had was up in the Ruahinis, and there were very few stags roaring, but one sort of late in the afternoon, we're up on a ridge. And I let a roar go, and this stag just started belting it out. Now, we never got to see the stag, but we've never had such a conversation sort of through roars with a stag like that before. It was just absolutely amazing. I personally have never made the sound of a hind or a fawn or anything. I've always just roared a stag, and I don't roar all the time. I'd sort of roar and then walk for 5 minutes and roar and just try and pick up where the stags are. And if they don't sound overly keen, I wouldn't keep roaring at him. I'd just try and pinpoint where he is and move in on him.
Yeah.
But I've never hunted in Australia during the roar. I've never hunted reds in Australia, but in New Zealand, you could sort of tell by the roar how worked up that stag's going to get. And if you can get him really worked up, he's going to come in. And we've called stags from a long way away with a good roar and shot some good stags doing it. So, yeah, I've never used a hind call myself.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Because I went the opposite route and I was like, you know what, it makes sense to me to start doing the female calls because they're out looking for females. And I'd always get the young, smaller blokes coming in, but never any of the big boys. Like I literally had, I had a spiker and a big old stag sitting over the other side of this hill, and the spiker ran straight at me. The other guy, he didn't care. He just sat over there. recently we had on this year's Raw, we had 3 different stags on the neighbouring ridge, and so we had to try call them across, and so we threw everything at them. We were roaring at them, we were high and calling, we were doing everything we could, and they just wouldn't budge because they had girls with them, they had deer on that side. Like, essentially, for them to leave where they were to come over to us was almost a couple of K because it was down a steep drop and up a steep hill. And it was just going to be too much, but it was just so interesting to kind of see it. Like, I think if you're in close proximity, the hind call works incredibly well, especially for just smaller stags in particular. But yeah, I think some of those big boys, some of the real big boys from what I've kind of got a clue on to now, the roars are definitely what's going to kind of work them up a little bit more, like you said, and you have to gauge what they're doing. Like, if they're being quiet, you don't roar.
Yeah, we were Dennis and I were hunting in the west coast of the North Island on a farm, and we were walking down in this little gully. That was a reasonable size hill on either side of us. And we heard I didn't even roar. I heard the stag roar sort of up towards the top of the hill. And I said to Dennis, man, that stag, he sounds pretty hot. So we sort of cut a trail straight up towards him. And he was letting out the odd moan here, and then we got to, I don't know, probably 60 meters from where he was. And typically when we're hunting like this, Dennis doesn't roar much. So he'd go ahead sort of 20 meters in front of me, and I'd hang back a little bit roaring, trying to get that stag to come in. And I let out this roar, and Dennis was 20 meters in front of me, and about 5 meters in front of him, there was a ledge, and the stag walked out on that ledge in front of him and was just screaming at us. Now, he never shot the deer. It was just a terrible angle, straight on, was a good stag. And I was 20 meters behind Dennis, snapping sticks and roaring at this thing. And I still remember my old mate turning around. His eyes were huge. And just his face, it was just the most unbelievable setup. The stag was so close to him and just belting it out for, I don't know, a couple of minutes maybe. And yeah, just a good experience, eh? But he was that kind of stag. He was just up for a punch-up. But he wouldn't come any closer. No. He would not come any closer. He wouldn't jump down that little ledge. He just stayed there and eventually turned around and walked back into the bush.
It's like when you see two men fight, right? Like, there's always has to be a starter. Both people will try and push it. And they'll, you do it.
Yes.
And then as soon as one goes, it's all on. But
that's right.
The testosterone has to hit a little bit harder in one of them first, apparently.
That's right.
That's hilarious. Well, Ryan, I think that's been incredible, mate. Thank you for sharing some of your stories. Like when we were talking last week, I think you'd just have hours of content to be able to share, based on some of the number of messages and pictures you sent me of just different pigs that you've taken over the years, plus obviously the African trips, hunting New Zealand. Like, there's just so much stuff that you've got, and so I appreciate you taking the time to come out and spend some time and share your knowledge with knowledge and stories with the bow hunting community that listen to the podcast. So thank you for that, mate.
No worries at all, mate. Always a pleasure.
And we'll have to maybe have you on after your African trip. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'll be good. Hey, I'll see. We're heading down again, sort of hunting deer shortly, I hope, within the next couple of months. So I'll send you some pics of that too.
That'd be amazing. Thanks heaps, mate.
Okay, my friend, you have a good day.
That wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, team. If you did have any topics, questions, or you wanted to suggest a guest for Becoming a Bowhunter, you can send me an email at matty@becomingabowhunter.com. If you're enjoying the show or you've enjoyed in particular episodes, please do me a solid and share it around with your friends. If you are not already, please hit the subscribe button, as the more subscribers we get, the higher the podcast gets ranked, and that definitely helps out for showing it to other individuals. If you are not already following me on Instagram, it's at becomingabowhunter.podcast, and on YouTube, it's Becoming a Bowhunter. Get out, team, fling some arrows, get that practice in, and walk those yards in the paddocks until you find those critters. That is it for now, but not the last time that you'll hear from Becoming a Bowhunter.